Hi folks, and welcome to Mountain Talk here on WMMT. I'm your host, Parker Hobson. It is Women's History Month, and later in the show, we'll hear about a couple of incredibly influential Appalachian women, including the tireless rural health advocate, Eula Hall, and the musician, Martha Carson. But we start today in Whitesburg, where last month, a group of local nurses from across the ARH healthcare system held an event to highlight what they said were dangerous cuts to local healthcare that were made by the Trump administration's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. The bill, which was passed last year by the Republican majorities in Congress, includes more than $4 trillion in federal tax cuts. Nearly half of these tax cuts, though, are concentrated in just the wealthiest 5% of American households, according to the nonpartisan Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. And to help pay for these tax cuts, the Big Beautiful Bill slashes funding for social service programs like SNAP and Medicaid. In all, the Trump bill is projected to cut Medicaid funding by nearly $1 trillion over the next decade. And the bill will be putting in new work requirements that could cause millions of people to lose access to Medicaid, in part through all of the new and frequent paperwork that these work requirements will mean. And that's not to mention people who can't work, like caregivers or disabled people, who will have to go through the process of proving their disability. For their part, the Trump administration says their Medicaid cuts are centered around getting rid of, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse, end quote. But all in all, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that some 7.5 million people will lose Medicaid because of the Trump bill. Here in the mountains, Medicaid's not only something that low-income people rely on. Medicaid reimbursements are also a big part of local hospitals' bottom line. In fact, according to the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy, some 35 Kentucky hospitals are now at risk of closing because of the Big Beautiful Bill's cuts to Medicaid, including local ARH hospitals in Whitesburg, McDowell, Harlan, Prestonsburg, and South Williamson, among others. Last month, on February 19th, a group of local ARH nurses, who are part of the union National Nurses United, held an event at James Wiley Craft Park in Whitesburg, where they shared their thoughts on the Trump administration's cuts, including how cuts to Medicaid have come even as other federal agencies, like ICE, received massive funding increases this year. Up next, we'll hear selections from these comments. First from Whitesburg ARH nurse Jessica Cottle, and then from Hazard ARH nurse Rachel Parks. And as a quick note here, this event was held outside, and it was extremely windy that day, and so you might hear some wind noise or distortion at points. But here is nurse Jessica Cottle of Whitesburg.
Hello, everybody. I stand here today as a proud union nurse and the chief nurse representative here at Whitesburg. I have been a med-surg nurse for 5 years and chief steward of the nurses union for 1 year. I am honored to be able to speak today on concerns that affect nurses and the patients that we care for in our community. Over the summer, Washington passed a budget bill known as the Big Beautiful Bill. This new law will remove millions of patients from Medicaid and Medicare. Many of our patients in our community and throughout Appalachia rely on Medicaid and Medicare. As a result, hundreds of rural hospitals are projected to close, including the one here in my community. When rural hospitals close, whole communities could collapse and many people will suffer as a result from lack of health care. No one voted in my community to have their health care taken away. The Big Beautiful Bill robs our patients of their health care to pay for tax cuts to billionaires and to bloat the budgets of DHS and federal agencies such as ICE. Nurses believe in a world built on care, not harm. We believe health care is a human right. It is an insult that our hospitals could close to fund tax cuts for billionaires that don't need them and to fund unpopular agencies that makes our patients and our hospitals less safe. As nurses, we advocate for all patients. This is why our union, National Nurses United, opposed the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill over the summer. and is now calling to fully restore funding to Medicaid and Medicare and make healthcare a human right. Today, we demand that funds be used to keep our critical access hospitals open. If the federal government has left us high and dry, we call on Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear to make sure that our rural hospitals stay open, especially here in Whitesburg. Our state politicians must find that money, whether through the Rural Health Transformation Program or directly from state revenues. Any hospital closure would be devastating to communities across Kentucky. Please support us and call your representatives so we can continue to provide safe patient care and keep our rural hospitals open. Thank you.
Woo! My name is Rachel Parks. I am a Chief Union Representative from Hazard ARH. I'm proud to have served this organization for over 30 years, with most of that time spent actively participating in the union. I have witnessed many changes in the healthcare industry over the years. Unfortunately, most of those changes don't serve our patients' best interest. That's why we're here today to stand in solidarity with our union siblings here in Whitesburg. The big beautiful bill was a dirty, rotten deal. What those politicians who supported the bill did was cold-hearted. They knew that the bill would throw millions of people off health care, especially here in Appalachia. They signed it into law anyway. As a result, rural hospitals will close, and that includes pretty much every hospital here in eastern Kentucky and many in West Virginia. As Jessica already stated, we as union nurses would like to ask the governor to make sure our hospitals, especially the one here in Whitesburg, receive a sufficient amount of money from the Rural Health Transformation Program or any other revenue sources they can muster. Thousands of families could suffer if we start losing our hospitals. We also want to make sure our hospitals remain safe. As nurses, we advocate for all patients. We don't care about your immigration status. We don't believe any patient is illegal. We're here to heal all patients and fight for everyone's health and safety. As nurses, we are bound by the promise to put our patients first. That means prioritizing their overall health and wellness, no matter what. Hospitals must remain safe places of healing and off limits to ICE. We know that lots of folks in our community voted to change our broken immigration system. However, no one voted to have our health care taken away. No one voted on the Ruga agency, mask, and government agents who don't respect the Constitution. In Appalachia, we believe in the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, and the freedom of religion. We believe in the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, which protects us from unreasonable searches without a warrant. ICE and other agents have been trampling over these sacred rights. And if you cannot abide by the Constitution, then as an agency, you have to go. ICE has only been around since 2003, and we can do without them. Take that money and give it to our patients and communities so we can keep our hospitals open and our families healthy. Thank you.
That was Rachel Parks, an ARH nurse based in Hazard. And before that, we heard from Jessica Cottle, an ARH nurse based in Whitesburg, both speaking in Whitesburg on February 19th. And both nurses are part of the union National Nurses United. Later at that same event, several local union nurses answered questions from the press, including from the Whitesburg Mountain Eagle and from our own Mimi Pickering, who captured all of this audio today. Up next, here are some of those questions and answers.
What have your patients been saying to y'all? Do they have concerns?
They do. They do. They bring up, complain to management sometimes that we're short-staffed, and they see that. They see us running around like a chicken with its head cut off.
A couple months ago, during rounding with some of the upper management, the patient was asked, do your nurses answer the call bells as quick as they should? And this patient looked at her and said, how can you ask me that knowing that these nurses are short-staffed? And I thanked him after. I said, thank you, because we complain all the time and nothing is done.
Another problem is going to be higher co-pays.
Yes.
And the patients they can't afford it, so they don't get the procedure done.
Medications.
And they don't get the medication they need. Higher prices on their medication, and they just don't take the medicine, and they just get sicker and sicker. They just don't come back.
Nobody should have to choose between paying a bill and getting their medication. And we have patients who wait until they absolutely have to come to the hospital, and then that's when they show up. A longer hospital stay, higher bill, it just compounds the problem.
Do people seem to be aware of what's gone on in Washington, that those kind of cuts and stuff?
I think they're already seeing the availability of being able to get to their medications already. I have a lot of diabetics that come into my ER that can't even get their insulin. So they have no choice to wait until they're about to die to come to the ER to get the care because they can't even get their maintenance meds already. And it's only going to get worse for them.
And that's why it's so important that we come out and we talk about making sure that the money that is going to these other agencies that was cut from Medicare, Medicaid gets brought back to where it needs to be in Medicare, Medicaid, because we have so many people that rely on those services. It's heartbreaking to watch these people go through what they're going through. Because that's all we want. We just want to take care of our patients. And having this money funneled somewhere else that is actively causing harm when we want it to go towards the good, it's sickening.
It's not a labor that we do out of money because it's
Right.
not there. We do it out of
Labor
love
love.
for our community and our patients. It's never been about the money. If it was, there would be even a bigger nursing shortage.
Any other messages you'd like to send out?
We just want people to keep coming to us for care. We will always be here to take care of the people in our communities, and we will help protect the people in our communities. So please come see us if you need to.
Those were comments from a group of ARH nurses, local members of the union National Nurses United, at a public event they held in Whitesburg last month, opposing cuts to health care, including the nearly $1 trillion cut to Medicaid that are part of the Trump administration's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. As a final note here, the bill's Republican sponsors in Congress did, on paper, take a step to address how the Big Beautiful Bill could hurt rural hospitals by creating a $50 billion so-called Rural Health Transformation Program as part of the bill. But so far, it's unclear exactly how this money will be dispersed, and a recent report by the publication The Daily Yonder quotes Alan Morgan, who's the president and CEO of the National Rural Health Association, as saying this extra pot of money couldn't serve the purpose of keeping rural hospitals open, because by the rules, these funds can't actually be used to make up for Medicaid losses. He called the program, quote, almost a shell game, end quote. Up next on Mountain Talk, we'll stay on the topic of local health, and especially that of local people demanding better health care. As we're about to hear, back during the War on Poverty, low-income people in Floyd County, Kentucky, were picketing public officials, demanding that health care be recognized as a right, not a privilege. And back then, millions of War on Poverty dollars were at stake. In this piece from the WMMT archives, former producer Maxine Kenny has this story.
In the late 1960s, a group of poor people organized in Floyd County, Kentucky. Inspired by the civil rights movement and angered by a War on Poverty program, which was directing money to local politicians, the new group called itself the Eastern Kentucky Welfare Rights Organization, or ECRO. ECRO fought for the right to survive with dignity in the mountains where coal was king and poor people were the serfs. By the early 1970s, the organization embraced the buzzwords of the poverty program, community control, and tried to put that concept into action. They insisted that health care was a right, not a privilege, and that poor people should control the federal money that was flooding into eastern Kentucky for health care. EKY was an organization of poor people, many of them disabled coal miners, but the leadership was decidedly female. And it was a welfare mother, Eula Hall, who emerged as the group's charismatic spokeswoman and fearless leader. She led a movement to establish the Mud Creek Clinic and challenged longtime Congressman Carl D. Perkins and the federal government to bypass the county officials and channel poverty funds directly to Mud Creek, a poverty-stricken community of narrow, twisting roads leading to small truck mines and deserted coal tipples. The federal government refused. In response, EKY appealed to the outside world for help to start their clinic. Today, the Mud Creek Clinic not only survives, it is nationally recognized for quality care and for the fact that it serves everyone, even those who cannot afford to pay. Congressman Perkins eventually became a believer, and last year the Mud Creek Clinic celebrated its 20th anniversary. Eula Hall continues to work as the director of the clinic's social services program.
You know, driving down the highway, you'd never expect what's out here. A lot of times in the winter, you could never get a car to this woman if you didn't have a four-wheel drive. This is not as bad as a lot of it is. A lot of times you have to go places you'd think you couldn't get a wheel bar to pick up a sick person. I know that little children has died just from diarrhea and vomiting. That used to be a big thing that would take a child in 3 or 4 days. What was so sad, the parents done everything they could. They just didn't have the money, no transportation to get them took care of medically. And you just do all you could with the home remedies, then sit up with them and watch them die, didn't you? Sit up with them. The neighbors would just come in and they'd be a house full of people. And all my life I thought this is ridiculous that people, good people, the best people on earth has to suffer and die for the lack of money. And I said, Lord, if it's ever a chance, if there's ever an opportunity, the price is not too high in labor for me to try to get a clinic for poor people.
This time I'd like to turn it over to Eula. Everybody knows Eula. You don't have to say all.
We've worked hard and fought hard for a clinic on Mud Creek, but I'd like to recognize Congressman Carl D. Perkins. He's been a great help to this community. I think he's one of the best congressmen the United States ever had.
Eula has been one of the most dedicated people that I have ever known to try to stay on a job and bring services in this country. You know, when the clinic burned down here a year or so ago, if you had not had a person with much drive at that time, your health services here at Mud Creek would all be over with. You would not have had any more health services. But she had the drive, and the No Line was dedicated that everybody should receive health services and stayed on the job and did not surrender to anybody. She has done so much for this country, and we will work together in the future. We'll all work together to bring the good people in this area better health services. Well, thank you.
In the 60s, we organized a welfare rights organization. We knew there were a lot of federal money because war on poverty was booming then. They gave Floyd County alone $1.5 million a year for health care for the indigent people. So I was one of their patients. In order to get treatment, you go to this outpost, they take your name, they put you in one of those vehicles and haul you to one of the local physicians, and they'd line you up. They'd be a line. They'd put you in the mind of the cheese distributing places and the food stamp office. They'd line you up and you'd be lined up clear out the door, to try to get into a doctor. And you can imagine about how much health care you got. We started documenting all the problems with this federally funded program, and it was not reaching the people's needs, So we finally got the Office of Health Affairs to listen to us, and they defunded the program. But we organized our own board, wrote our own application, and tried to get refunded with the money they had defunded from this, but they didn't. They wouldn't give it to us, so that's when we had to go on we decided we'd do something on our own, and that's when we established the Mud Creek Clinic. Allie is one of the people that was one of the health committee members that was real strong, very outspoken. I'd like for you to meet Ellie and talk to her.
If you didn't have a car and didn't have money to hire people to take you, you just had to stay at home and live or die. So I got started with, after we organized our welfare rights group, we'd go to Lexington and meet up and Hazard and just everywhere, different places, meet up with different ones. And we'd all decide what we was going to do and what we needed. It was really what we needed.
We picketed the Floyd County Comprehensive Healthcare Program that was not meeting the needs of the people. We picketed all 8 outposts, and they tried to run over us with the Broncos they were driving. And
yeah, I'd just make a demand. I'd say, now we got to have it our way. It's going to be the people's way.
EKY was a different kind of poor people. There's a different kind of organization of poor people. It was an organization of poor people, which is different. They felt that their problems had attracted federal monies to the county, and they wanted a hand in devising solutions with that money to their own problem.
And it really made a big difference in eastern Kentucky. The Welfare Rights Organization really did. The Mud Creek Clinic was born right out of the Welfare Rights Organization.
They used to. Don't matter if you're 90 years old, you go down there and tell them you want to sign up for food stamps, and they just flat tell you didn't qualify. And they didn't ask you your name or how old you was or what you did. They just say you didn't qualify. Well, there wasn't nothing you. A lot of people didn't know any better. See, wasn't nothing you could do. Just come back home and sit down and say you didn't qualify. And they do them the same way about their Social Securities and things. But see, they got their pay just the same. It didn't make any difference to them whether they signed them up or not. They got their pay come just the same.
There's no man could get on welfare, ADC, if he didn't have a pull with the county judge. They played politics with him. It didn't matter if he had 8 children or 10 kids. He starved, he suffered. And that's what brought a lot of disease in our community. Dr. George Archer, he was the mayor at Christiansburg at that time.
And he would always say the MD after his name stood for Mean Democrat, and he was really involved in politics.
Right.
The whole medical system, he and several other doctors ran in the county, and they just had a tight control of it. When the comprehensive health program came in, they saw that they had control of it. They didn't want to bring any new doctors in like was supposed to happen and just bring all the people into them. But the role of the doctor is very prominent in politics. I guess that's true anywhere, but
yeah,
especially here.
Yeah, I played a great role in politics in eastern Kentucky ever since my childhood. And they wanted to disuse us, as poor people, to make us do as they say do. That's the way I'd say they wanted to bound us to the rope. Keep it in their hands where they could eat good, live good, ride good, and us sit back and couldn't educate our children with college or nothing, but their kids could. Which we wanted college. There are a lot of people around this country wanted college, but they couldn't afford it. They couldn't make you stay up. They couldn't get the set up. You see, it's just like that boy of mine that got killed in the coal mine, 19 years old. In 1979. He was in to go to college. He went to private and signed up. I've got the papers to prove it. And I couldn't come with the money. He said, Dad, I won't go. Said, you have to borrow $10,000, will you lose your house? And he said, I'll just go to work in the mines. And he worked a year and something and got killed back on top of the hill here in a truck mine, ununion. He couldn't get a job at a union mine. That was Ricky Lee Hamilton, my son. We had sense and ability, but not the education, knowing what steps to take with the law of our country. In eastern Kentucky, they believe in our Constitution, but they didn't know how to go at it.
There was, in fact, a great deal of dependence built up around the poverty within the county, that because people were poor and people were dependent upon welfare and other government programs, local officials could benefit by administering those programs in such a way. I think what they underestimated was the ability of people to organize and preserve and protect the services started with their efforts and on their behalf for poor people to come into control of their own programs, in fact, gave them their own political base.
An old man lived over wheelwright. He'd worked in the mines all his life. We know of 42 years he'd worked in the mines. Never drawed no Social Security, never drawed nothing. Take him, signed him up, and about, I guess 10 months or 10 months to a year, he got a letter from the Social Security Department in Baltimore, Maryland, said that they found him able to work, that he wasn't entitled to Social Security. Able and physically to work. Common work, him 92 years old. So we used that letter to read to every meeting to other old people, you know, and we'd take the old man right along with us. He stayed with us till he died, and I think he lived till he was about 98. There are thousands of them right here in this county that don't have one decent meal a day because they don't draw enough to live on.
If it wasn't for that determination and that tenacity locally, there wouldn't be any health services. But it's not only just the health service going within the clinic, but it's the unemployment. It's the reduced benefits. All of these things in Mud Creek and elsewhere have led to increases in infant mortality, increases in hunger, very unhealthy conditions.
A lot of people get sick from worrying about it. You know, I know they call me up and they say, Eula, if I lose my state card, you know, what will I do? If they stop my Social Security or if they take my food stamp, what will I do? We had 4 suicides in 1 week here. And you know, the economy and the frustration brings that on. You know, they don't know what to do. They're scared. They know they ain't gonna go out here tomorrow and get a job, feed their family. Ain't no way you can. There ain't no jobs. You don't have to be an expert to see that. You don't have to be a brain to know that. You just have to be around here a while.
If health care is a right, it's still a right to be achieved. And Mud Creek represented one step in one model in achieving that right. But more importantly, it demonstrated what health care as a right would look like. People providing not only health services, but with an awareness of the context that promotes the well-being of an individual. It gives us hope that health care as a right is possible, and that it would make a difference.
It's the personal things that, you know, they see that people care, and if we can help, we always try to do that. And like we have coffee, and if people want coffee, they just go in the kitchen and get it, just though they're home. And they feel that they own part of it, which they do, and it's theirs.
You know, there was a lot of good accomplishments in the 60s, and people ain't forgot that. People ain't forgot how they got their black lung benefits. They ain't forgot about how they got the law amended. They ain't forgot about how they got better lunches. They ain't forgot about how they got as bad as the roads are. You should have seen them then. I know what it was then. I know what it is now. There've been a lot of battles won. There've been a lot of battles won. Like the Civil Rights Movement was a big improvement. The same thing with the Welfare Rights Organization. There was a lot of good programs born out of that. There was a lot of eyes opened and a lot of, you know, people made aware that you can do something. You know, people used to think there's nothing you could do, and they just sit back, you know, especially women. They thought they were just trapped for life, and generation after generation just served their purpose and went on out, you know. But it's different now, and it's by organizing and working together.
This program was produced by Maxine Kenny. The historic material was drawn from an Apple Shop Headwaters video, Mud Creek Clinic, produced by Ann Lewis Johnson. The voices you heard, in the order of their appearance, were Mud Creek Clinic Director of Social Services Eula Hall, Eastern Kentucky Congressman the late Carl D. Perkins, ECRO activist Allie Wicker, Professor of Leadership Studies at University of Richmond in Virginia, Richard Kudo, ECRO activist Jay Blevins, retired coal miner and mountain preacher J. Lee Hamilton, Vista volunteer Steve Brooks. This program was produced with funding from the Kentucky Humanities Council, the Campaign for Human Development, and the Commission on Religion in Appalachia.
Family's gotta pack up and go where I'll make a living. Lord only knows I'm busted. Where I'll make a living, Lord only knows I'm busted.
That was Maxine Kenny, reporting for WMMT in a piece from our archives from back in 1993. We're going to take a quick break here to hear from some folks who make this radio station possible. But stay tuned for more Mountain Talk after the break. Welcome back to Mountain Talk here on WMMT. I'm Parker Hobson. For the second half of our show today, it is Women's History Month, and we bring you a visit with a groundbreaking musician from right here in the mountains, Martha Carson, who was born Irene Amberge in Neon in Letcher County. From our former radio series, Southern Songbirds, which was produced by Rachel Goodman with WMMT, here is Martha Carson's story.
Somebody could be throwing tomatoes at Martha Carson, but let me have my guitar and let me sing satisfied, it wouldn't even hurt.
Some of the finest country music in the world has come from the southern Appalachian Mountains. Contemporary artists Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, and Patsy Cline all share similar stories which began in the mountains. But let's go back a little further in time and visit with one of the first women in country music to make the journey from the Kentucky hills to the Grand Ole Opry, Martha Carson. In the heyday of the radio barn dance shows, Martha Carson with her husband James reigned supreme as the barn dance sweethearts on WSB in Atlanta. Later, she carved out a successful solo career for herself, singing the gospel music upon which she was raised. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. Join me for Southern Songbirds, a 13-part Appleshop series honoring the women of early country and old-time music. The story of how Martha Carson went from being a housekeeper to being a household word is one which is best told by Martha herself.
I took a job with my aunt, and bless her heart, she was a great big fat lazy woman. God love her. I loved her to death, but she was so lazy. She paid me $3 a week. I got up in the morning and I built the fires. I got all the kids breakfast, got them off to school. Then I went and milked the cows and fed the hogs and the chickens and all that. And then I had to cook supper for the kids. And if I didn't have it ready when they came in, they were sort of ugly. I was saving up my $3 a week to order me a new guitar out of Spiegel's catalog. So we made out the order, and honey, I'd walk all the way to Hemphill to the post office to see if that guitar had come in. And I guess I made 10 trips and it wasn't there. Well, the one day that I went and it was there, I ain't never been so thrilled, I don't guess. I believe it cost about $18 and something. Strange thing what your love for music can make you do.
Back in eastern Kentucky, coal trucks rumble past the door of the Cowshed Trading Post, where Martha Carson's second cousin, Luther Johnson, sits behind the counter. He remembers the home place where Martha was raised.
There was hundreds of wild roses growing around the stream there in front, an old place. But I can picture right now in my mind the front porch, the swing, and all the structures around there, the kitchen table. I know when we'd have a working out in the field, like clearing and log rolling and burning off new grounds, we'd work hard, but we'd come into payday then, and the payday was about a 18-foot table loaded with food. Everybody eat, everybody pitched in, everybody brought food, and everybody worked together and everybody lived.
Despite the farming and coal mining which sustained some families, young girls, often as young as 8 years old, had to find work outside the home to supplement the family's income. Martha Carson remembers.
Back in the hills, there wasn't any little jobs. There wasn't Burger Queens or things like that, or Shoney's that you could go get a job at where you could make any money. It was all, household work, and I've done ironings on those old cold irons you heat on a stove. I've done beds full of those for a quarter, So I know where I come from. How could I ever forget it?
Luther Johnson.
But I couldn't say enough hardly for her, because I know from where she started, it would be kind of like a Loretta Lynn from Butcher Holler. She made it because she had the willpower and she stayed with it.
Martha Carson was born Irene Amberge. She and her sisters Opal and Bertha formed a trio called the Sunshine Sisters and performed their old-time and gospel music throughout the mountains. Here are Martha and her sisters singing the Lonesome Road Blues.
Blues, Lonesome Road Blues, that ain't gonna be treated this way. I've got them Lonesome Road Blues, Lord, I've got them Lonesome Road Blues. I've got them Lonesome Road Blues, and they ain't gonna be treated this way. got them old Lonesome Road blues. Blues, Lonesome Road blues, and ain't gonna be treated this way.
We played every time anybody would open a door and say they needed some entertainment, we were there. And I'll never forget one occasion, this man came up the holler, that's what it was where we lived. He was wanting us to sing for a fellow that was running for sheriff. They have to elect sheriffs up there just about every 3 months. Well, they put us in this sound truck. I played guitar. And we sang the mountain songs, you know. We traveled in that sound truck and sang all day long, I guess 12 hours a day. But you talk about tired, and my fingers were so sore from playing so much. That's the most work I ever done for $15.
I'm going where the chilly wind never blows. Lord, I'm going where the chilly wind never blows. I'm going where the chilly wind never blows. And I ain't gonna be treated this way. Blues, Lonesome Road blues. I got them old Lonesome Road blues. Blues, Lonesome Road blues. And ain't gonna be treated this way.
She began going out auditioning, you know. And they'd go to Huntington, they'd go to various places. And every chance they get, they'd get out and expose their ability as a musician, you know. I remember the first time that she ever got a guitar, her father swapped a little bull calf to the guitar. And she come walking up there barefooted for me to tune her guitar. And she had a long dress on. But she was real cute. She had a mouth, you know, kind of like Martha Ray. She could sing too with that mouth. She was a real songbird.
Marion Sumner is a fiddle player who played with Kitty Wells and later with Jim and Jessie. He lives in Isom, Kentucky, and remembers playing fiddle for the Sunshine Sisters back when the girls' father was their agent and manager. He remembers how unusual it was in that day to hear a full trio.
What you hear around this area then wasn't too much trio work, it's just one person is singing, you know, like solo singer and a band in backing them. And to hear a real great trio like their harmony was so good and close, their parts was correct on every song they done. They'd work it out till they knew it was correct before they'd do it. And if one of them thought the other was a little wrong, they'd say, let's hear it do this again. I think you're getting off your parts just a little bit. And they'd do it till they dressed it up and got it right.
When I want ice cream, I don't want candy. When I want buttermilk, I don't want brandy. When I want one thing, another won't do. When I want love, and baby, I want you. No substitute of love for me, though they may be cute as they can be. When I want sugar, I don't want salt. I come by to understand it ain't my fault. There's one wing dish on my menu. When I want love, and baby, I want you.
My mother and my dad and my grandfather and my uncle had a gospel quartet, and they traveled around all the surrounding states, all around doing at the singing conventions, and they were a real famous quartet at the time.
One thing that musician Marion Sumner remembers about Martha Carson is that at an early age she already had a commanding stage presence.
Oh, she had a great personality. That was one of the things. She even had this great personality when she was starting out. I remember telling her dad, well, she's a good showman already. She was a natural born showman, it had to be, because she had to. See, I thought the nicest personality on the stage to be young in the business. You know what I'm saying? Like she'd been doing it all her life, you know. And they were all like that. Oh, they'd step out there like, you know, it was real professional.
I've always loved the Happiness that I can see it bringing to an audience, you know.
That sense of showmanship not only impressed her fans, but it left a lasting impression on her family and friends. Second cousin, Luther Johnson.
And she was everything. She was just, when she come to our house, seemed like sunshine would walk right through the door with her.
Martha and her sisters, like many of their female contemporaries, found that the one avenue open to women in country music was the live radio barn dances of the 30s.
Direct from Renfro Valley, in the heart of the Kentucky hills, Pillsbury's best flour, the whiter flour for lighter baking, presents the Renfro Valley Folks with John Lair.
And there's peace and content and goodwill in the valley where time stands still.
We started out in Lexington, Kentucky, WLAP, in '39, and then John Lair had the Renfro Valley Barn Dance. I'm sure you're acquainted with that. He heard of us, and he brought us to Renfro Valley. And we became the Coon Creek Girls along with Lily Mae Ledford. Then he formed another country show to start in Atlanta, Georgia. He was going to call it the WSB Barn Dance. And instead of being called the Coon Creek Girls, then we were called the Hoot Owl Hollow Girls. We've been called nearly everything. The three of us girls, when we got into Atlanta to be the Hoot Owl Hollow Girls, our picture was on the front page of the Atlanta Journal. Down under there, it said Minnie, Maddie, and Martha, the Hoot Owl Hollow Girls. So we had to sit down and pick out who's Minnie and who's Maddie and who's Martha.
Look what followed me home tonight, Mama, can I keep it? It wanted just to tag along, and I sure couldn't leave it. It's got the brightest eyes in town, and its hair's a golden brown. Look what followed me home tonight, Mama, can I keep it? You never let me keep a pet. A dog or cat wouldn't make you fret, but this is something different yet. Please, Mama, my heart is set. It wants to stay right close to me, and just think I got it free. Look what followed me home tonight, Mama, can I keep it?
She was really appreciated. When she done these shows, the people liked her so well that they always asked them to come back, you know. When you all going to get a chance to come back? I think that'd be the important thing to tell the people, that she was really popular then with the people in this part of the in this area. Everybody would brag on how good they were, and which they wasn't bragging, they was just telling the truth, they weren't that good. They had a real fine trio. They rehearsed hard, worked hard to get that good.
He will set your fears on fire. If to sin is yours, he's your desire. You have heard Jesus call. Heed it lest you soon must fall. Let the Lord just your soul inspire. If you join the heavenly choir and rejoice with him as the sun goes dim when he sets the world on fire.
Shortly after the group's move to WSB in Atlanta, Martha met James Roberts, son of Fiddling Doc Roberts. Martha taught James the old shaped note songs she had learned as a child, and the pair, with their tight harmonies and guitar and mandolin duets, quickly gained popularity throughout the South. They became known as the Barn Dance Sweethearts, and fans began writing letters saying they'd named their children James and Martha. With their rising popularity, they soon secured a 7-year contract with Capitol Records. Here are James and Martha Carson, with James on the mandolin and Martha on guitar, singing the classic country song, The Sweetest Gift.
One day a mother came to the prison to see an airing, that precious son. She told the warden how much she loved him. It did not matter what he had done. She She did not bring to him the roll of pardon free. She brought no frog, no gold, no papa's none to see. It was a halo that comes from heaven's light, the sweetest gift, a mother's smile.
But all was not sweet with the barn dance sweethearts. The marriage began to be strained, but Martha felt compelled to tough it out for the sake of her fans. In 1950, they moved to radio station WNOX in Knoxville, Tennessee, and there the duo split up, both personally and professionally. This breakup shattered the public's image of the perfect musical couple. Martha's life was made quite difficult, as both her fans and her agents blamed her for the duo's breakup. But Martha was determined to continue as a solo performer. Shortly before the couple's separation, she wrote, "Tired of your running around."
You say that there's no other in your life but me, but every time my back is turned, you're slipping round on me. I wish if you're not satisfied, you'd set my heart at ease. I'm better off away from you than here alone to grieve. So tired of your running round. When I need you, you just can't be found. Tired of chasing you all over town. I'm so tired of your running around.
After we broke up, Capitol Records wouldn't let me do a solo. The A&R man was D. Kilpatrick at the time. D. Kilpatrick would come to Knoxville after we were parted company. I said, well, I'm not going to build any more duets. And he said, well, Martha, you just can't sing a solo. I said, okay. I said, whatever I do from this point on, I'll do by myself. And if it goes, that's great. And if it don't, I'll be the only one to hit the ground. And he said, well, we're just not going to record you as a solo singer. And I said, well, just sit on that contract, because my contract was in force for 3 more years. And I said, just sit on that contract then and see what you hatch out.
In an era where few women were making it as solo performers, Martha was venturing out on her own for the first time.
I'd started singing my solos on the midday merry-go-round. It was almost like just starting all over to get up and sing by myself anyway, because I'd started out originally with my 2 sisters and then the duet, and then all of a sudden by myself. It was a real weird feeling. And I had not established any confidence in my ability to stand alone, but I was trying to.
One angry listener walked right into the radio station and complained to the management about Martha divorcing James. This upset came just before Martha's tour of the Great Smoky Mountains.
We started over the Great Smoky Mountains to do a show that night. And I've never been a crybaby, but the tears just came uncontrollable. I cried all the way through Gatlinburg and about halfway up the Great Smoky Mountains. I was riding in the back seat of Bill Carlisle's car, and all of a sudden, it was just like a voice spoke to me and says, why are you crying? I'm satisfied, and you're satisfied. And there came the song, just like a gush of lightning, and I couldn't find a thing to write on in my purse, and I looked down at the floor. There was an old dirty blank check on the floorboard of Bill Carlisle's car, had muddy shoe prints all over it, but it was dry. We got to Bryson City, North Carolina. I was the happiest person in the world. The song brought me such comfort. I loved the way it sounded.
That trip turned the life of Martha Carson around. Upon their return, musician Bill Carlisle took her over to Nashville to meet Fred Rose, president of Acuff Rose Publishing Company, who, along with Roy Acuff, published most of Nashville's major hit songs. In Mr. Rose's studio, Martha sat down and played Satisfied.
Reluctantly, I picked my guitar up and I sang the song for Mr. Rose. And he said, gal, who you cutting for? And I said, well, I'm signed to Capitol Records, but they won't let me do a solo. And he got on the phone immediately and called D. Kilpatrick. He said, are you going to record this girl? I said, I got a girl by the name of Martha Carson in my studio here. Are you going to record her? Evidently, the answer was no. And he said, well, you release her from the contract because I want to cut her immediately. So I placed the song with Acuff Rose. And a couple of weeks went by, and Mr. Rose called me. He said, Gal, didn't you get a letter from Capitol Records? I said, yes, sir, Mr. Rose, I did, but I knew it was just a repeat of what they've been sending me, so I just put it in my desk drawer. I'm so tired of reading it. He said, Gal, get that out. He said, that's a top solo royalty contract. He said, I want you in here next week to record.
If I'm worried about tomorrow, when I reach my journey's end, well, I'm satisfied with my Jesus. When he knocks, I let him in. He'll go with me through the valley, for I know he is my friend.
I went on back to Knoxville and they released the song. And when I first heard it, oh, I just cried. I thought if I could just have one more chance to go out there and sing it. But the people loved it. God bless them, they loved it.
You know, I'm satisfied. I've got that old-time religion, got that old-time religion. That is why I'm satisfied.
If my friends, they all forsake me, and they turn me from their door. If they sow no seeds of kindness, make the thorns in my path grow. Well, it won't matter over yonder when I've reached the other side, for I'm going to sit down by my Jesus. Satisfied. What can anybody do to top that one? I mean, they can't come back and fight you on that line.
That song became a huge success and was recorded over 100 times by everyone from the Blackwood Brothers to Elvis Presley. The success of the song prompted an invitation from the heart of the country music world in Nashville, the Grand Ole Opry.
You know, the Ryman Auditorium was built as the Union Tabernacle, a place of worship. And the Opry really hasn't changed it that much. There have been some joyful noises made in the name of the Almighty, like in 1952, when one of the greatest gospel singers of all time, Martha Carson, joined the Opry.
Back in those times, you had to have a hit record to ever get on the Grand Ole Opry. Well, when Satisfied came out, it was such a big hit that WSM called me and asked me to come over and do a guest spot on the Grand Ole Opry. And that was at the time I was still working in Knoxville as a midday merry-go-round. It was quite a transition because I had so many warm friends around WNOX and that had been so good to me and had encouraged me when I needed encouragement that it was like cutting away from a part of my family, you know.
Although difficult at first, Martha's move to Nashville introduced her to many new friends, including Minnie Pearl, String Bean, and her future husband, music promoter X Casse. From 1951 to 1954, Martha recorded over 24 songs for Capitol Records. Under the direction of Ken Nelson, she was given an artistic freedom over her music that she had not had before, and she continued to sing her unique brand of gospel music. The young Elvis Presley was a big Martha Carson fan, and he would go backstage after every show and learn her gospel songs. He later told the Jordanaires that he had patterned his act after Martha Carson. In the song Saints and Chariot, we can hear where Elvis got some of his phrasing.
Now won't you swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing low, swing high, great big chariot in the sky. I've got a home on the other side. Well, now
While in Nashville, Martha signed with RCA Records. Soon, her management decided to move her to New York to court a more glamorous audience. There, she got bookings in places where no country singer had ever performed, including major network appearances on NBC. Steve Allen was so impressed with her performance on his show that he took out a full-page ad the next day in Billboard magazine stating, "Martha Carson is not a girl, she's an explosion." Yet during that time, Martha felt she was being pushed to sing too much pop and rock and roll. 3 years after going to New York, she moved back to Nashville to resume singing country gospel. I'm Gonna Walk and Talk with My Lord was her second biggest hit.
When I heard a voice from heaven say, "Come unto me, and I will make you happy if you'll just abide with me." So I'm gonna walk and talk with my Lord. I'm gonna walk and talk with my Lord. He's the lily of the valley. He's the bright and the morning star. I'm gonna walk and talk with my Lord.
Martha recalls the times when the world of country music was an outright hostile place for a woman to be.
The only rough spots that I can recall was when I first started. I went a few days pretty hungry and was too proud to ride home and let my mommy and daddy know it, because if I had, they'd have come and got me. And I'll never forget when we first went to Lexington, Kentucky, to the radio job. Was with an all-girl band working for this man. And this was a bad awakening because we really and truly were so innocent. And this man, of course, he was a married man, had a big family. He would try to make advances toward us girls, and many times I would slap his face. That's one thing that is rough on a woman. You have to just remember where you come from and how to handle it, and I think I've handled it pretty well.
Martha's advice for women starting out in country music?
Be yourself. Don't try to sound like nobody else, because God didn't make but one you, and God didn't make but one Martha Carson. That's what the people need. They need to hear you, your originality, not you trying to sound like Patsy Cline or Katie Wells or whatever. I think that's the most important thing I could tell them, and just to always be on guard and try to keep their morals down through the years in the middle of the road, because it really is wonderful to have been in the business as many years as I have and have the great respect that I enjoy.
From Neon to Nashville, Martha Carson has left a trail of fans a mile wide and has played everywhere from the front porch on Goose Creek to the Waldorf Astoria. Now in her 50th year in the music business, Martha continues to perform on the Grand Ole Opry and all across the country. But everywhere she goes, she carries with her memories of growing up in the mountains of eastern Kentucky.
Oh, it goes with me everywhere I go, hon. There ain't no way I would want to even lose a part of that, because Kentucky is me, through and through. That's where I was born and raised, to be honest, to be humble, and to be spiritual, and to be everything that I am. And I could never want to run from that.
You've been listening to an installment of the former WMMT series, Southern Songbirds, all about the trailblazing local musician, Martha Carson. That series was originally produced by Rachel Goodman here at Appalachia back in 1990, and the assistant producer was Don Mussel. And that's it for Mountain Talk today. Thanks so much for listening. For WMMT and with Mimi Pickering, I'm Parker Hobson.